All right. I'm now joined by Jesse Singal, who has been on the show a couple times before, and Zaid, Jilani, who is not. Thanks for making time, guys.
Thanks for having us.
So the reason that I asked you to come do this is that last week was I don't know, every week lately has been strange, but like a particularly strange thing last week is that two people who I interacted with a fair amount online, you two, both got into Twitter fights with the vice president of the United States, which feels strange to say. So I just kind of want to go through the basics of what happened here because I thought it was kind of striking. And I wanted to kind of get both of your thoughts on this. So this all starts out with this very long tweet that I'm not going to read all of from JD Vance, but starts out, consider that Joe Biden allowed 20 million illegal aliens into our country. That placed extraordinary burdens on our country, etc. The American people elected the Trump administration to solve their problem. And this sort of, the punchline, right, comes with this bit about Abrego Garcia said, when the media and the far left obsess over an MS-13 gang member, demand that he be returned to the United States for a third deportation hearing, what they're really saying is that they want the vast majority of illegal aliens to stay here permanently. And Zed, you'd responded, JD, if someone's a really bad hombre, you can give them a trial and prove it. Saying you don't have to prove it means you're okay with deporting innocent people. Treating people like throwaways is no different than, sort of appealing to the hillbilly elegy kind of narrative from Vance. The elites in this country did to your own family over the generations. To which Vice President Vance responds, again, you're not even really addressing the issue. Biden overwhelmed the system with illegal immigration. Is the proposed solution to give a jury trial to all 20 million illegal aliens, more if you count those already there. And of course, our very robust jury trial system produces errors. So I'm not okay with deporting innocent people any more than I'm okay with sentencing innocent people. What I'm okay with is the reality that any human system will produce errors. Further, I accept the actual trade-off between not enforcing the law and enforcing the law. And I choose the latter despite the inevitable errors. You're hiding behind due process while ignoring that your actual solution means the ratification of a Biden border crisis that was rejected at the ballot box. And Jesse, you respond, joining the Trump bandwagon means you either need to be dumb or pretend to be dumb. JD Vance might have mortgaged his morality and his legacy, but he's not dumb. He doesn't actually think anyone's proposing 20 million trials, to which JD responds. And I mean, I actually think this is maybe the main reason I want to do this segment, just because like I thought by the end of this response, it had gotten pretty astonishing. Like it starts out with some sort of boilerplate kind of media baiting, says, I hate the smug, self-assured bullshit. I know I'm right, and people must be dumb or immoral to agree with me. It's an easy way to go through life because then you never have to think seriously about why your worldview is justification for the mass invasion of the country my ancestors built with their bare hands. And I have to say that last part really really creeped me out, right? Like, because it really seems like there's a not very subtle implication there that the country sort of belongs to people with the right ancestors, or else,
Yeah,
or if he's not saying that, I don't know what he is saying.
All three of us probably agree that like that whole idea of a dog whistle is overused and like anything can be a dog whistle. But this, to see a sitting vice president say, I mean, I don't know how he could get much more explicit than that. He sounded, and I'm not saying he is a white nationalist, but he sounded pretty indistinguishable from a white nationalist. So I was blown away by that response too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he responded that way to me, partly because like I think I contested what he was saying, but I think he probably felt somewhat defensive to Jesse because I think Jesse had like questioned his, his character, his intelligence, and I think, what Jesse is saying is like, yeah, anyone who signs up to Trump, like they have to sign up to being in a position where they are going to end up defending things they wouldn't do themselves or they wouldn't say themselves, right? And like it's the same thing with like Jay Bhattacharya, who I think now is having to defend a lot of what RFK Jr. says about autism or so on and so forth. Like some fairly smart people. I think Vance is a fairly smart person. But I actually think the response to Jesse was maybe not him being political or not him defending Trump. Maybe it was a flash of like what he really thinks. It was kind of emotional, right? Like there were emotive elements to it. And there was a kind of bluntness to it. Like Jesse called it maybe a dog, maybe it's a dog whistle. I don't even think it's a dog whistle. I think it's like a bullhorn, right? Like I think he's very clear. It's very clear what he's saying, right? Like, and I thought about it because like I watched him. It was really interesting. Like, he and Usha and his kids went to India, right, in the past week. And of course, disaster followed him there too. I don't know. He has a curse on him or something, but when you saw him like go to the temple, he went to like a temple with his wife and his kids were dressed in Indian clothes like pretty much the whole time, it looks like, and his wife was to some extent, and he was wearing his suit, right? And I was kind of thinking like maybe this isn't so much like JD thinks foreigners are inferior, but JD like in his mindset and his mentality is like, yeah, like these are my ancestors, this is our land, this is my ancestors, this is Usha's ancestors, these are my kids have ancestors from both places, they need to respect and honor their ancestors. Maybe he was even happy that everyone in his family was wearing Indian clothes except for him, right? Like he was like, yeah, they should. Like everyone should be tied to the land in that way. Everyone should be tied to their lineage in that way. And I should be as well, which is why I'm in my suit right now. So maybe it's like a consistent ideology or philosophy that he's expressed even through his family. And yeah,
it sounds pretty woke. He's coming out against cultural appropriation.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, I think, somewhat him probably processing his trauma from his childhood, right? Because in his book, in Hillbilly Elegy, he writes about how when he married Usha, that was the first time in his life where he had an extended family where everyone cared about each other, right? Where like, they wouldn't get estranged from each other or fight too much, and like they would look out for each other, and like, he kind of admired and respected that. And he's like, like part of him probably thinks, like, why don't white people do that, right? Like, why are these Indians who come to America, why are their families so tight, and like, why are white people like in such a mess, right? Like, why is our families falling apart? So like, I don't know. I think that Vance actually does kind of have that sense of like peoplehood and ancestry and nationhood. And honestly, it's not that unusual like around the world for people to feel that way, right? Like talk to someone in Beijing, they'll say something similar to that. Talk to someone in Mumbai, they'll say something similar to that. But it's a little bit unusual though in like 21st century America, right? For people to be that tied to like you said, like you might say to the soil or to your lineage or ancestry. And I think JD is to some extent, right? And he feels like his ancestral ground or his ancestral people or his family, his lineage and his culture are somewhat under attack. And I think that's like a soft feeling for a lot of people, but they don't like explicitly say it that way, right? I think they say like, well, we just don't want illegal immigration, or like, diversity isn't always good. Like there's a lot of like soft ways to say it, but like their Vance is just blunt about it, I think.
Well, but there's a difference between saying you feel some connection to your group,
sure,
which I think there's benign versions of that, and saying my group built this country. I think that was the part that jumped out at me as like, particularly creepy.
Yeah, my group built this country. Like it just it seemed disturbing to me in the same way that I have to say I found Vance's in the RNC speech last year, the America is not an idea thing, a little disturbing, because you're right, Zaid, right? Like there are versions of this that are very like common and sort of unremarkable in a lot of places in the world, but I actually think, this is like sort of weirdly negatively polarizing me into being like much more patriotic than I would be usually. But I actually think that one of the things that's like distinctive in a really good way about the United States is the relative lack of ethno-nationalism, right? Like most really existing nationalisms are, somewhere in between. Like pure ethno-nationalism is just blood and soil. This is, this is the land of my ancestors, and pure civic nationalism, that everybody who's here, this is just the country of, the people who are in it, and everybody kind of has an equal claim on it. And one of the very best things about the United States, to my mind, right, is that it's come so close, especially, post civil rights, et cetera, to being this kind of pure civic nationalism that, which is, I think, roughly what people are trying to express when they use that slightly cheesy phrase, America is an idea. And seems really good, right? I mean, like, that seems way better than the alternative to me. Like, as because I mean, like, like, I saw that thing about this is the country my ancestors built. It's like, oh shit, did any of my ancestors get here early enough to out?
But
does he think like his wife is a little bit less American than he is? He probably does. He probably does think that, like, Usha doesn't have the exact same claim on the country that he does, because her lineage is like, she's like second generation or something, right? Immigrant. So even though she's born here, right? Like, he probably does think that's a little, I don't think he thinks that she's like less of a citizen or like less his wife or his family, but he probably does, think that. And he probably thinks that she has a duty to honor her ancestors and her lineage. And he's probably proud and happy that she does that. I mean, he cooks vegetarian food for her, right? Like, that's one of the stories he told on the trail. Like, he because she's Hindu and she doesn't eat meat, right? She's that version of Hindu. And so, like, like, he even helps her honor her lineage. Like, he respects that, but I think he does think it's distinct, right? I don't think he really 100% buys the melting pot idea, right? Like, that, like, the old, like, 1990s liberal idea that has come under attack from both sides. Like, I think he's probably one of the highest ranking people in the United States who doesn't buy it, right? Like, he doesn't believe it.
One thing that jumped out at me about this, and this is sort of what I should say, when I said his followers are dumb, I already said on the fifth column, we talked about this, I should have said credulous. And what I mean is, there's this strange thing going on where it's rare for one party to have as much power as the Republican Party has, and to have an opponent that is as demoralized and scattered and unable to put up a fight. They could pass a lot of laws if they wanted to. They could change immigration policy if they want to. They have the discretion and the power to do these things. And the fact that instead Trump decides to keep going so overboard and oftentimes violate the law so flagrantly, what pissed me off about this is obviously every VP has to defend his or her president and lie to some extent. But this idea that by raising alarm about people disappearing into CCOT, we're saying 20 million, which, first of all, 20 million is pretty made up. They keep using different made up numbers, but nobody I think who matters is saying you're not allowed to deport people. And in fact, hundreds of thousands of people are deported every year because there's a quicker process than a full-blown trial. So there's just a level of, like, pretending to be stupid that bothers me.
Yeah, nobody is getting a full jury trial before being deported. That's not how it works, right?
Well, there's a couple things going on, right? So, like, the deportation hearings are very fast, right? They're usually just before a judge from the DOJ. It could be like 5 minutes long, literally. But also, like, at the same time, Stephen Miller is calling people terrorists. He's accusing people of, like, severe crimes. And in those cases, you would have to go through a jury trial to be, like, convicted of being a terrorist or convicted of being any number of things. That in many cases, these individuals have not been convicted of anything. And yet the government keeps calling them, right? Like, as journalists, we're not even allowed to do that, right? Like, if the government takes someone to trial, we can call them, like, alleged, right? We can say, this was an allegation, but they're not even doing that, right? They haven't given anyone a trial. Every day, Stephen Miller is giving a new label to Abrego Garcia, or one of these dudes, like, oh, he's a terrorist, he's this, he's a human trafficker, blah, blah, blah. Hasn't been convicted of any of those things, right? So, like, in those cases,
not only that, but Chris,
but, like,
yeah. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you, but that paired with Kristi Noem saying she thinks they should get life sentences in CCOT this is incredibly serious. Like, this is a really grave thing for the government to do. So that's, and again, JD Vance went to Yale Law School. Surely he understands what's at stake here. So I think we all have a million things to be mad about. None of us are happy about the Trump presidency, but to me, like, I found focusing my own pointless anger and ire is directed more at people like JD Vance and Marco Rubio, who I know better. I don't think Trump knows better. I don't think Trump has an ideology, but I think it's the enablers who really get to me. And, it's dumb to get mad about this on Twitter. What does it accomplish? But there are hundreds of people rotting in this jail who did not have due process. And obviously we should be concerned.
Right. And when he says, like, I mean, look, this is worth saying. It's not even the sort of main thing that jumped out at me about the tweet, but yeah, it is worth saying, right? Like, okay, deportation hearings are very fast. It's silly to pretend otherwise. It's silly to pretend that something like a deportation that the Trump administration itself said in court was an administrative error that that they shouldn't have done. That there was a do not deport order to El Salvador. that this is like, oh, anybody who's against this must just be insisting on like full jury trials for everybody who's being deported. Anybody who's being deported. I mean, that's just, I mean, that really is dishonest. But also, like this is, even calling these deportations, while sort of accurate to the legal mechanism that's being used, is a little bit misleading, right? I mean, the way like you kind of indicated, Jesse, because like what we're really talking about is knowing direct transfer to imprisonment without trial, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
I mean, like you sort of like there's this sort of weird workaround. I mean, the same way that like the Bush administration, when it would do like the extraordinary renditions, so you don't have to say, we're pulling people's fingernails off ourselves, right? But like this is it's the subcontracting aside. I mean, we're talking about imprisonment, possibly a la the Christy Nome point, life imprisonment without trial with direct U.S. participation, right? So that's really, really bad. And I also think that the thing, like, again, I just want to harp on this for just one more minute. The thing about the country that my ancestors built, like you're right, Zed. I think you're right that like it's not that it's not that Vance has the view that everybody who has the wrong ancestry, like his wife and partially his children, right? Like should just therefore be evicted from the United States, right? I think that's clearly not his view. But I do think that there is kind of a view here that it's like, it's that that there is a little bit of a secondary status, the same way that like if you have like lunch at a country club and you can bring in a non-member because they're your guest and they have a right to sit there and have lunch and it's all good, and like right. You'd be very upset if somebody tried to kick out your guest and all that stuff, right? But like they do still have this other status, right? I mean, like that seems to be more of the implication to me, that that people who don't have the right ethnic roots, right, the right ancestry, don't quite have the same status. And I don't know, I mean, maybe this is just me taking it personally as people who's somebody whose family came to Ellis Island a lot more recently than that, right? But like that kind of seems like enough to be really bad all on its own, without sort of taking it to, oh, we need to like cleanse the country of everybody who lacks the sort of first rank status. You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive postgames on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.